I'm Adobe Certified Instructor Jeff Witchel from The Gurus, and this is Adobe Illustrator Quick Tips. Today's tutorial is titled Typographically Correct Strokes. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at doing the impossible, adding typographically correct strokes to text. First, let's look at the problem. If I go to my selection tool and click on my type object, and add a stroke in the appearance panel. In order to do that, I have to double click on characters to get to the stroke. And I'm going to go to my stroke swatches pop-up and add a black stroke and make it thicker. I'm going to go to the pop-up and just go to, how about 16 points? And I'm going to click off of the object to show you the problem. The stroke is in front of the fill. Let me select my characters again. And I'm going to make the stroke just a little bit less so it's easier to see the problem. Let me click off of it again. And you can see now the stroke is covering the filled letter form. So it looks absolutely awful. And I'm willing to bet that all typographers just cringed when they saw the results. Well, one of the nice things about the appearance panel is you have total control over any selected object. You can change its appearance dramatically. So let me go back to selecting my characters and see if I can click on my stroke listing and drag it under my fill. And it looks like it's giving me an insert point, so my stroke will be behind my fill. But when I let go, it doesn't move. It stays on top of the fill. Maybe I missed. Let me try it again. I'm going to click on the stroke and drag it under the fill. I have my insert line. Let me let go. Doesn't move. So there has to be a way to do this. Let me see if I can figure something out. I could outline my text, so it's just regular objects. It seems like that might work as well, but it's not even worth trying. The reason is, when you outline your type, each character becomes an individual object. And individual objects have a stacking order. So the stroke from a letter to the right is going to cover the letter to the left because it is actually in front of that letter to the left. So that wouldn't solve the problem. Let's see if there's something else we can do. Why don't we just draw a regular object? I'm going to go to my rectangle tool. I could hit my M key to get there very quickly, but I'm just going to click and drag and draw a little rectangle. And you can see it picked up the colors of the type. I have a red fill and a black stroke. Well, with a regular object, I could click on the stroke and actually drag it under my fill. And it works. Let me make the stroke a little bit thicker so it's easier to see. Now that the stroke is behind the fill, half of that stroke is being covered by the fill. So I'm making it thicker so we can still see it. Maybe I'll go all the way up to 16. I'm going to try a little trick to see if we can get this to work. In Illustrator, there's a lot of click, drag, and drop. And if I click on the thumbnail in the appearance panel, I can take the appearance of my selected rectangle and see if I can apply that appearance to the type. And you can see I am getting a little plus mark. And if I let go, how cool is that? The stroke is now behind the fill, and it's working beautifully. And you can see even line to line, the fill is in front of the stroke. So that is pretty cool. But I wonder if there's a way that I can do that without the trick. You can see that the fill and the stroke have been added to the object. I wonder if there's a way that I can add the fill and the stroke to a type object. Not to the selected characters, but to the type object itself. Let me go to my next artboard. Now I'm going to start over again. Same exact type. So I'm going to go to my selection tool, and I'm just going to click on my type object. Now, in order to get rid of the fill that's currently applied to this type, I have to go to the characters. So I'm going to double click on characters, and there's my fill. And I'm going to do something that doesn't make much sense at first. I'm going to click on the fill and go to the swatches pop-up and apply none. So I have an object that has no fill and no stroke. Let me go back to my selection tool and see if I can figure out a way to apply a fill and a stroke to the type object itself. You can see it says type here, not the characters, but the type object. And I'm going to go under my options menu of the appearance panel, and sure enough, there's something called add fill. Let me do that. And it is adding a fill to the type object itself. You can see characters are down here. Let me double click on characters just to show you that there still is no stroke and no fill. Let me go back to type again, and I'm going to make my fill red by going to the swatches pop-up. I'm going to go to my stroke listing and add a black stroke. Make my stroke thicker. How about 16 points? And it's totally covering the letter forms now. But the stroke has now been added to the type object, not the characters. So I can click on the stroke and drag it underneath the fill. And when I do, it does work. So it is possible. That's pretty cool. And when I have something like this that is fairly complex to do, the first thing I would do is save this as a graphic style. So I don't have to go through all of this each and every time. So I'm going to go under my window menu to graphic styles. To create a new graphic style for this type with a typographically correct stroke, I'm just going to go to new graphic style under the options menu and name it stroked type. And this object style will work beautifully for large type like this. So I'm just going to click OK, and it added my graphic style. Let me go to my next artboard and see if it actually works. And I'm just going to select that type object and then click on my graphic style. And it works beautifully. That is pretty cool. Problem solved. Well, that's about it for today. Make sure to stay tuned for more Illustrator quick tips from the gurus. For InDesign training from the gurus, visit www.jeffwitchel.net.